On November 5th of 1999, I believe it was, Zetta Camille Arkman was living at my house with me and my wife, and she was going to school in the Oskaloosa School District. And on November 5th, she went to school. The bus driver brought her home that evening, and that's the last time anybody's seen her. And so I got a call from my ex-mother-in-law around 10 something that night, I think. And from there on, we searched for the next 3 days.
On November 6th, the church's pastor, James Bollinger, received a telephone message on his answering machine from Tom Bledsoe, Floyd's brother. The message said, "I know where Camille is. When you get this message, I turned myself into the police department. You don't know the grief that I went through as I sat there thinking, I wish I never did it. I will pay for the rest of my life for what I've done."
My brother, Thomas Bledsoe, went to the police station, turned himself in, took him to where the body was, told him he'd done it, gave him his gun.
The next day, an eyewitness to the murder surfaced, Floyd and Heidi's 2-year-old son, Cody. While the members of the Countryside Baptist prepared for a memorial service that night, Cody told a story to the other children who were there at the church. "Uncle Tom shot Aunt Millie, bam, bam, bam," he said, and dropped to the ground, shaking as if he'd been shot. The next day, Tom was charged with first-degree murder. After he was jailed, Tom changed his story. He said that his brother Floyd actually committed the crime and had admitted to it during a conversation on Saturday on the side of the road where Floyd was passing out missing person flyers. The town's sheriff, Roy Dunaway, was a strong believer in Tom and said that his story did not pan out, so the investigation continued, focusing more on Floyd. Police and some of Camille's friends and family had grown suspicious of Floyd since the day after her disappearance. At a little after 7 at the night Camille was found to be missing, W.S. Noble, a colonel in the U.S. Army, had called the sheriff's department claiming he'd heard screams while he was deer hunting. It had been the voice of a young woman, he said, and at about 5:30 she was screaming, "Please don't hurt me, somebody help me." This hunting area was near the place of Floyd's employment, Zool Dairy. During their interviews with Camille's friends and family, the police had learned she was uncomfortable living with Heidi and Floyd. The couple was gearing up for a divorce, and the young girl was troubled by the tension between the two. Due in part to Sheriff Dunaway's suspicion and tunnel vision, the investigation into Floyd intensified throughout the week. Early in the week, Floyd was interrogated by a special agent with the Kansas Bureau of Investigations. Floyd's father hadn't provided him with legal counsel as he had for Tom. So without an attorney, Floyd waived his Miranda rights and faced Detective Randy Carino alone. Carino asked Floyd about his whereabouts on the day Camille disappeared, and Floyd gave him his entire itinerary. Detective Randy Carino searched Floyd's trailer and the surrounding property. He found burnt fragments of blue jeans near a well on the Bledsoe property and asked Floyd why he would want to burn his jeans. Floyd said that he had been digging and had gotten his jeans covered with dirt. They weren't worth keeping, so he burned them. Carino challenged Floyd, calling him a liar and saying the fabric tatters would be sent to be tested for blood. But Floyd pleaded more and said that he had nothing to do with Camille's death. As Carino was leaving, Floyd again insisted he was innocent. Carino asked whether he would be willing to take a lie detector test. Floyd agreed. They scheduled a test for Friday afternoon, a few hours before Camille's visitation. When Heidi learned of the test, she questioned Floyd. He said he was taking the test because Tom was trying to push the blame on him. Floyd was nervous about the test. The interrogation went on for hours, pressing into the time Floyd was to be at his sister-in-law's viewing. Floyd never made it to the visitation or to the funeral the next day. That same day, Tom was let out of jail on a $2,500 signature bond. All that's required for such releases is a signature on a dotted line. It's a privilege rarely extended to suspects charged with first-degree murder. The following Monday, the case against Tom was dismissed. Tom also underwent a polygraph test during that time, and there's evidence that Sheriff Dunaway, who told a news reporter in 2000 that Tom passed the test with flying colors, was not telling the truth about Tom's results. Months later, Floyd's trial began. Prosecutor Jim Vanderbilt went in with little on which to base a case. There was virtually no physical evidence linking Floyd to the crime. The rape kit came up negative, yielding no DNA. The scraps of burned jeans found near Floyd's trailer contained no signs of blood. None of Camille's blood was found on any of Floyd's clothes, in his car, in his house, or in the truck he used for his work at the Zool dairy farm. No one even knew where or exactly when Camille was killed. However, the state proposed that there was evidence that Camille was afraid to be alone at night with Floyd when Heidi was working. Rosa Bollinger, the pastor's wife, testified that Camille told her that Floyd was always hitting on her and trying to get her to wrestle with him. If he would not stop, she would go to her room. At the trial, Tom testified that on Saturday, November 6, 1999, he left for work between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. He testified that on his way to work, he saw Floyd's green car with a white top. Tom stopped Floyd at the edge of Oskaloosa and asked him if Camille had been found. Tom testified that Floyd laid his head on the steering wheel and looked a little nervous. When Tom asked him what was wrong, Floyd said that Camille was dead. Tom said that Floyd was mumbling, but he heard him say, "Accidentally shot her." Tom asked what, and Floyd said, "She's dead, accidentally shot her." Then Tom said he asked if Floyd had raped or sexually abused her. Floyd responded, "Yes, no, I don't know." He told Tom that he recalled her shirt and bra were above her breasts and that he used Tom's pistol to shoot Camille. Tom testified that Floyd told him he shot Camille once in the back of the head and twice in the chest. When Tom asked where Camille was, Floyd told him she was in the trash dump behind their parents' house, underneath plywood, trash, and dirt. Tom said Floyd told him not to tell anyone. If anyone were to come snooping around, he wanted Tom to take the blame. If Tom did not take the blame, Floyd would tell people about Tom's past. At trial, Tom acknowledged that Floyd had threatened him this way before to get what he wanted. Tom thought Floyd would reveal that he tried to have sex with a dog, had been caught with dirty magazines, and had played with himself while watching pornography. Tom and Floyd's father also testified and provided an alibi for Tom to rebut the defense's attempt to portray Tom as the killer. Their father, Floyd Sr., said that Tom was with him and his wife at an auction until 1 p.m. on the Friday that Camille disappeared, and then when they got home at 10 p.m., Tom was asleep. A security alarm, which would have gone off if anyone left the house during the night, did not go off, said Tom's father. Floyd's wife, Heidi, also testified that she had asked her son Cody what happened to Camille, and Cody described Tom shooting her, wrapping her in a blanket, and putting her in a dump. By eliciting that testimony, however, the defense allowed the prosecution to bring in testimony that a few days after Floyd's arrest, Cody's statements changed to say that Daddy killed Camille. Floyd did not testify, although witnesses were called that testified that Floyd spent the day that Camille disappeared working at the dairy farm and that he did not get home until around midnight. According to the testimony, Floyd then immediately began to search for Camille. His whereabouts were accounted for from the morning of November 5th through November 6, 1999. The case boiled down to conflicting timelines and the recollections of two warring brothers. Floyd's defense lawyer, John Kurth, set out to show that Tom had more time to commit the crime than his brother by attacking the validity of Tom's strongest alibi, a receipt from Rusty's Outdoor Sports in Lawrence, Kansas. Tom was off work on the day that Camille disappeared, and at 3 p.m. he picked up his paycheck at Farmland Industries in Lawrence where he worked as a security guard. Then, Tom said at around 4 p.m. he went to Rusty's Outdoor Equipment to buy ammunition. The store manager testified that the receipt issued to Tom was generated at 4:30 p.m. Kansas Bureau of Investigation agents had scrutinized the time on the store's cash register and found it to be relatively close to that time, but when Kurth tested the clock, he discovered that it was 45 minutes fast. Tom would have had plenty of time to show up in Oskaloosa as Camille had gotten off the bus, he argued to the jury. On several occasions during the trial, Prosecutor Vanderbilt wove intriguing tales unsupported by any evidence or testimony. During closing arguments, he told jurors that Camille was on her knees, begging for her life when Floyd shot her as his son Cody looked on. This scenario ignored the ballistics tests, which showed that the first gunshot was fired horizontally. It also ignored testimony that placed Cody at a babysitter's home at the time of Camille's disappearance. As Prosecutor Vanderbilt told tall tales, Floyd's defense lawyer, John Kurth, did not object. He allowed police officers to speculate about Tom's honesty and listen to praise of Tom's devout Christian nature. The trial lasted a little over 3 days. On April 28, 2000, the jury convicted Floyd of first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, and aggravated indecent liberties with a child after deliberating for 3.5 hours. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 16 years. In 2004, after the Kansas Supreme Court upheld his convictions and sentence, a hearing was held on a motion for a new trial alleging that Floyd's attorney had provided a constitutionally inadequate defense at trial. The motion was denied, and in 2007, the Kansas Supreme Court upheld the decision. Although the court found that the prosecution had improperly discussed facts that were not in evidence and improperly misstated evidence and testimony in its closing argument to the jury, they determined that the errors were not sufficient to require vacating the convictions. Floyd was then represented by the Paul E. Wilson Project for Innocence and Post-Conviction Remedies at Kansas University School of Law. A law student with a degree in forensics investigated the use of touch DNA, and in 2012, the Project for Innocence sought permission from the State District Court to conduct DNA testing. In 2014, the project joined with the Midwest Innocence Project, and DNA testing of the vaginal swab, the sexual assault kit, and the clothing of the victim was conducted. The testing identified DNA consistent with Tom Bledsoe on the vaginal swab. Testing also identified the DNA of Tom's father on the victim's socks, suggesting that he helped drag the victim to the burial site. In October 2015, lawyers for Floyd filed a motion to vacate his convictions and sentence based on the DNA test results.
Second, weeks after MIP announced the new test results showed DNA linked to Floyd's father and his brother Tom on Camille's body, Tom took his own life in the parking lot of a Bonner Springs Walmart. He left notes confessing to raping and murdering Camille, along with a map showing where deputies could find a shell casing that was never recovered.
I wanted the truth. I just didn't want it to end the way it did.
On December 8, 2015, Judge Gary Nafziger vacated Floyd's convictions, the prosecution dismissed the charges, and Floyd was released from prison. The tunnel vision of Sheriff Dunaway and his hunch that Tom did not actually commit the crime is one of the reasons that police began investigating Floyd so closely after Tom recanted his confession. The fact that Sheriff Dunaway also lied about Tom's initial polygraph results is another alarming aspect of the case, considering Floyd's polygraph test was one of the biggest components that implicated him in the eyes of the police. There was also defense and prosecutorial misconduct that contributed to Floyd's wrongful conviction. Kurth, the defense attorney, failed to confront Tom about the fact that he had a hearing problem so severe that he could not hear normal conversation from more than a couple of feet away and had to be facing the speaker so he could read the speaker's lips. The court even held that Floyd's defense attorney had made numerous mistakes, including introducing Cody's statements and failing to object to the prosecution's improper arguments to the jury. The court held that Floyd's attorney's performance fell below the constitutional threshold of objective reasonableness. Prosecutor Vanderbilt fabricated lies and told them to the jury. Additionally, when Floyd's new counsel investigated the case, they discovered an order signed by the prosecutor, the county sheriff, and a representative of the Kansas Bureau of Investigation prior to Floyd's trial, agreeing that there would not be any DNA testing conducted on the evidence. Furthermore, eyewitness testimonies also played a huge role in Floyd's wrongful conviction. The testimony of Tom was the first testimony that implicated Floyd. Additionally, testimonies from W.S. Noble, hearing a young girl scream in the forest near Floyd's place of employment, and Rose Bollinger testifying that Camille was afraid of him, likely played a huge role in influencing the jury's decision to convict him. The tragic death of 14-year-old Camille Arfman became a dual tragedy with the wrongful conviction of Floyd Bledsoe. A sheriff's hunch, apparent misrepresentation of polygraph results, and false eyewitness testimonies led to his arrest. A prosecutor's fabrications, teamed with acts of incompetence by his defense attorney, led to his conviction, and the repeated falsehoods of his brother kept Floyd Bledsoe behind bars for nearly 6,000 days.